like, comment, share, subscribe. Thanks for watching. All right, y'all, I'm back with another flashback. This video features Rambo. Guys, I am still working on re-uploading all of my content back onto YouTube, adding my commentary so that I can meet the YouTube guidelines. This is why you guys are seeing so many flashback videos from my channel. Guys, please be sure to drop me a comment, smash that like button, and share. All right, now let's get into this video.
It was a video of somebody like from back in the 60s. And they were just talking about, they had asked him a question about how, what's your occupation, right? Like, that's the big thing. Like, and so this person was like, I'm just living, I'm just living. And I just started to think, like, this is the reason why the movements from the 60s and 70s did not last. This is the reason why those groups, those communities just disintegrated, why it didn't turn into anything, is because that attitude isn't enough. And I noticed that kind of attitude also is popular in the modern movement today. The people who are trying to return to nature, who are trying to live more naturally. This is also an attitude that a lot of people have. And so I just want to talk about why that's not the appropriate attitude, and why that's not the end all be all, and why ultimately that can lead to the demise of a community, of a tribe, of a group of people, because that's what happens, And so I'll just share my observation in my studies of asking people who have been part of communities, having been part of a community myself, and seeing the how that unfolded and the downfall of that. So yeah, I've had conversations any chance I get when somebody tells me they were part of a group. I always ask them questions about what happened, why did it fail, or where did it go wrong. And so I've identified three main things that I've seen in communities and groups that ultimately ends up being the failure and the demise of the groups, And so first, I want to talk about why it's important. I think a lot of us are gravitating towards community. Something that I talk about. One of my big long-term goals is to create physical community, to create a modern tribe, a modern hunter-gatherer tribe, if you will, in some regards, integrated with technology, integrated with the culture that we come from, but also honoring the ancestral past and that nature. So here's what happened, right? So yeah, people are gravitating towards community. We're feeling like this individualistic mindset that we kind of come from. And I was talking about this in my last live, how fundamentally the way we perceive life is different. We were born into a world where we have to try to figure out and navigate this reality that's very complex without much guidance, right? It's like, figure it out. What do you want to be when you grow up? Oh, well, you got to go to college. Well, what college are you going to go to? There's thousands of colleges, thousands of occupations. There's all kinds of options, and almost infinitely seeming amount of options. And you're kind of tossed out there to try to figure it out. And I don't know about for you, but for me, it felt like I was having to blaze my own trail without much guidance or really awareness of where I was headed or who I was or any connection to.
All right, y'all. If you haven't picked up your copy of Greatness is a Habit, authored by Aaron Dixon, otherwise known as True. Many of you know him as True. He is an ex-Carbonation member, and he's authored this amazing read. If you are interested in self-development and growth, this book is a good one for you. It's available on Apple Books for $1, guys. I got my copy and I love this book.
Anything solid, so that's kind of the background that a lot of us come from. But in community, imagine community being something more where there's already a foundation set. And when you're born into this foundation, you're born into this group, you're born into a certain way of doing things. And it's not just you, it's not just your siblings, it's not just your parents, it's everybody that you literally know moves this way and knows this way of life to be the way of life that they've always done. So it's like, in some sense, there's some security in that. There's some benefit in that, kind of conserving that culture.
He's only paused for 1 second, guys. He's coming right back.
Right? So it's a fundamentally different way that we come into this world. So, but I do see that there's a lot of benefit in that, because it stabilizes us. It gives us some way to orient ourselves. Like, I'm here, I'm part of this group. This is what we do. This is how we move. This is how we eat. This is where we live. This is what we practice. This is what we believe in. Like, there's some sort of self-identify self. So I think that's the main differences I see between like the modern Western culture and maybe something like a traditional tribal culture, right? So we're going into communities. A lot of people are interested in that because there's something that they're looking forward to be a part of. Maybe they don't feel fulfilled with the current structure that they came from, or they just don't feel connected with the way of life that they maybe believe that has perpetuated unhealthy, unharmonious actions and beliefs. All right, so this is where we're at, right? A lot of us are being attracted to that. So why aren't communities as successful as they could be?
Now, Rambo, there are some communities out there in which the people are supporting each other, they depend on each other, and there's an even exchange going on amongst them. There are even tribes out there that are actually self-sufficient and functional. So I think, his perspective probably comes from being in carbonation, being in that cult. I think that's where the majority of his perspective is coming from with this.
Successful as they could be, why do they fail? So the main three things that I've identified, number one is leadership.
Most definitely, carbonation did not have good leadership at all. Lehigh Bishop, a.k.a. Nature Boy, a.k.a. Three God, was just trying to get his tallywhacker wet. That's all he wanted, just to get his tallywhacker wet.
Leadership. Leadership is one of the things that I think gets kind of overlooked or rejected, especially when people wake up, because it's like, well, the government is leadership. Authority, the police, all these people kind of represent leadership. So the only type of leadership that a lot of us know is leadership that we're in opposition to, or that we're not necessarily seeing the value or benefit from. So when we come into this awakened state, we reject leadership, right? So we don't understand that there's leadership that can be beneficial, that can be in alignment, that could actually enhance our experience here. So number one is leadership. So what happens is either the leadership gets ego driven and it gets out of control and it becomes all about the leader, and it just turns into a cult where everybody's just worshiping the leader and the leadership has ultimate control and everybody's just a submissive, subjugated, person in the group. That's one of the options, right? And so you can see why there's failure in that. And then also there is no leadership. So when there's no leadership, also the same thing happens. The group will disintegrate because in the absence of leadership, everybody's an individual. Everybody wants to do their own thing. This person wants to move this way. This person wants to move that way. And everybody wants to move a different way. And so ultimately there's no cohesion and there's no way to move forward with the participation of everybody that just wants to be for themselves. So that's one of the biggest things that I think I've observed, is because we come from such an individualistic culture. We don't even know how to integrate as a part of a group. It's like, no, I want this and this is what I want, and things have to be the way I want, because if I'm not comfortable, then I don't like the experience that I'm having, as opposed to thinking about the group. What can benefit the group? How do my actions affect the collective? If I overconsume food, how does that affect the other members of the group? And how can I participate in a way that's mindful of the other members, of the group? So I think that that's something that we have to move into. That's an awareness that we don't typically walk around with in our individualistic cultures that we come from. So learning to be part of a group is fundamental and crucial for sure. Number two, second thing I observed to why these groups and communities often fail is that there is no economy. Now, when I say economy, I'm talking about two things. Number one is literally there is no goods being exchanged. There's no financial commerce being generated. That's one way, right? But also on a different angle is there's no exchange of value. So because there's no exchange of value, if you don't know what you're offering and you don't know what you're here to provide, that's a problem. And if the people around you don't have anything to contribute, they don't have any value that they're offering, that's a problem. So there has to be an awareness of the value that we're here to provide, meaning what is our purpose? Do we know what we're naturally good at, what we're naturally here to offer to the group? And do we offer that openly and willingly and abundantly to the group, right?
He's definitely kind of drawing his inference based on his experience in carbonation, because that's what, kind of went on there. Everybody had their own specific talents that they brought to the group to offer.
And abundantly to the group, right? So if you don't know what you're here to offer and you're part of a group, you're just going to be sitting around, with your hands crossed, and so you have to know what value you were born to give to the group. And everybody has value. I don't care who you are. You came here with something that you have an innate gift for something more so than others have for that same thing. So you have to figure out what that is for you, right? And then if everybody else is having that, then now we just got to figure out how can we exchange the values that we offer with one another. And that way we create value for the group. I provide this for you, they provide that for me. And so we create this energetic economy. And that is extremely beneficial for the group. Otherwise, you just have a group of people who there's maybe one or two people providing value and everybody else is just bloodsuckers. They're just there taking and taking, but not really giving anything back. And that's out of balance. But at the same time, if you have somebody who's taking everything from you, or you're giving everything to them and they're not giving nothing back to you, that's out of balance too. So there needs to be an exchange. If there's no exchange, there's out of balance, there's not harmony in that space. Number third thing that I've observed is that there's no foundational values that the group is founded on. And if there is, that the members aren't aware and moving with that in mind. So this is where kind of culture comes in. And so you have to build a culture that is from the ground up, founded in something, founded in values. Like, what do we care about? What do we value? How do we look at the world? And why is that beneficial to us in the group? And so when you can kind of formulate this, then you can communicate this. And if you can communicate this, you can find other people who can analyze themselves and be like, oh, I'm in alignment with this. And so they can join with that awareness instead of just joining something. Because it's like, it's cool that you want to be a part of nature. It's cool that you want to reconnect back to nature and reconnect back to the land. Like that's all good and everything, but that's only a very small component of it. Because when shit hits the fan and people's human nature comes out, you're going to need a lot more than a desire to be part of nature. You're going to need a lot more than a desire to be connected to the land to be able to sustain and withstand that human connection. And so this is what I've noticed, that a lot of people come to communities as an experiment. They have plan Bs, but they just want to experience something, but they're not really in it for the long haul, right? I guess this is the fourth one that we could add. What's your level of commitment? Like, do you just see this as an experience, or are you actually fundamentally feel aligned to the group, to the tribe, and are you willing to dedicate your life?
I'm going to go on ahead and agree to disagree, because I feel like it's not the level of commitment. In his personal case, in Rambo's case, when they got up and left carbonation, when they did, it wasn't because of their level of commitment. It was due to the fact that they were being mistreated and they did not like it. So there's not always a commitment issue. Sometimes there are conditions that you just do not want to continue to live under.
And are you willing to dedicate your life? Because if I create something and I'm dedicated with my life to it, this is what I want to do. I don't see no other way that I'd rather be living life. Why would I allow people to come in who don't see it that way? Because then at that point, I compromise on on what I'm doing. You know, I compromise on the mission because I'm allowing people who don't have that same drive, who don't have that same perspective. They're just coming and then they'll go as easy as they come because they're not really committed, right? So you got to understand the way we're moving forward in these groups and these communities, and what's needs to happen is the commitment needs to be present, and you need to be willing to go through the shadows and the darkness of your tribe, of the members. You need to be able to sit with each other and go through the nastiness that is our own shadows, that is our own reprogramming that we need to go through. And let me tell you, that's not going to be easy, but it's necessary, and you need to be committed in order to go through that process. Otherwise, as soon as shadows come out, boom, you're going to be out the door because you weren't really committed. You just wanted to have a good time. And I'm all for having a good time. Trust me, I love to have a good time. I love to laugh. I love to, congregate together and eat good food and all of that. But that's only one part of it. The other part of it is, can you be with me in my shadows, in my darkness, in my ugly moments? Because that's what I really care about. It's easy to be fun and have a good time and we dancing and we doing whatever. Anybody could be a part of that, But what I'm much more interested in is people who can walk through the shadows with one another, who can be there with their brothers and sisters and be able to hold space and be a support system, hold you accountable, and just be able to be there and remain present despite those things that will arise, because it's human nature. Don't try to evade human nature. Don't try to escape human nature. Understand human nature and learn how to integrate the reality of human nature in a harmonious way. Because what happens is, if you try to avoid it, it's going to come to the surface. And so if you aren't prepared for it when it comes to the surface, when it inevitably does, it's going to be traumatic. It's going to be a chaos. You're not going to be able to know how to handle it. So those are the main three things that I see. If anybody wants to share any experiences that they've had around community, around tribe, about a group, and if that didn't work out, or if it did, I'm also wanting to hear that. Like, please share your wisdom with me today, because I just wanted to share that. I saw that video and it's like, we romanticize. I've seen so many videos of people online that say things like, yeah, we could just be in nature eating fruit, but except we got to work. No, yeah, we could, but that's not the whole story. Don't romanticize this shit, because to me, it's all romantic. Even the darkness, even the beauty of it, even the light, it's all beautiful. But I think when people romanticize it, they're only thinking about the positive aspects, or the aspects that they see positivity in, as opposed to the shadow aspects that are also enhancing if you can learn to work with them, and if you can learn to integrate them and alchemize them for your growth and development. Those are actually the most powerful aspects that you will have through this communal experience.
All right, y'all. If you haven't picked up your copy of Greatness is a Habit, authored by Aaron Dixon, otherwise known as True. Many of you know him as True. He is an ex-Carbonation member, and he's authored this amazing read. If you are interested in self-development and growth, this book is a good one for you. It's available on Apple Books for $1, guys. I got my copy and I love this book.
But if you don't know that, if you don't have that awareness, when you see it, you're going to interpret it differently. You're going to be like, well, I don't want to go through anything hard, so I'm just going to go back somewhere else where it's more comfortable. And it's like, if you don't stay the route, if you don't stay the course, then you will never experience true transformation. Because I really believe that community is the most powerful form of self-development and transformation. It has been my experience. All the fasting, the eating, the cleansing, all that stuff that I did in solitary by myself, it does not compare to having a solid group of people around you to hold you accountable, to hold space, to work with, to grow with, to have experiences with. It's very much, in my opinion, the greatest thing that we can try to arrive to, and that we should be aiming for, is to be able to commune with one another in a very traditional, indigenous way where we socialize in very deep, connected bonds. So that's just my perspective based on my experience. I thought somebody wanted to come in. So if anybody has any questions, anybody want to come on, share their perspective. I got about 20, 30 minutes maybe. Read some of the comments. Hey, what up, brother? Son of Oahu. Keep spreading the mana, brother. Absolutely. Appreciate it. Isla del Caribe. Historical cycles are doomed to repeat themselves. Oh, yeah. I don't think I can click the link, but I agree with that statement. I look at life as cyclical. Commemorating the history of Guatemala and the rise of surviving cultural traditions. Equal energetic exchange.
I will let y'all know Rambo has built quite of a name for himself on social media. He is considered to be an influencer, and he's actually started his own Wild Brotherhood. It's a group of men who utilize each other for resources in every facet of life. So it's really an amazing thing to see him continue on his journey and really live what he feels and what he preaches.
Equal energetic exchange. Culture, good bacteria. Yeah, so it's like, man, it's really raining out here. Yoga communities around the world and permaculture for peaceful and healthful sustainability, ceremonial peace and community committed to long-term sustainability and thriving of mankind. Yeah, that sounds good. So much depression everywhere. Through thick and thin, exactly. Yeah, that's what really matters, man, in life. If you can find people that really will be with you through the hardship, man, that's the most valuable thing you could find. Everybody wants to celebrate. Nobody wants to put in the work. Everybody wants to harvest the crop, or they want to reap the benefits of the harvest, but nobody wants to be there when they have to nourish and nurture the plant until it gets to the stage that it can be harvested. Sending love, positivity, and prosperity to you and your loved ones. I appreciate it, Brand Nation. Isla mantra is all of me is welcome here. Yeah, for sure. Exactly. That I like that. Yeah, all of you. And you know what? Like, I want to see the fullness of people, because like that's when you really have a more intimate relationship with people, is when you see all of them, not just the appealing parts of people, but also the ugliness, the nastiness. Like, I think that's something that we should get more comfortable with, because it's part of who we are. I lived in a community where I believed my personality would be accepted. However, I ran into the same sort of barriers, like when I would sing or talk, but I would still work and I was paid. Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, let me know if you want to come on and share that. Peace and balance and wellness to you and all on the live. Yes, peace and balance to everybody. I was almost chastised, however, my friend took my defense and received payment for me. I did have these great meetings with other forums about cooperation and sustainable trading. Lots of tech-minded people wanted to build off-grid in reference to economic structure. Cole Ken said, not the time right now, but I'll go live with you. All right, let me know. Hey, what up, the Mana movement? Appreciate it. Okay, so if you guys can hear me through the rain, hopefully. Oh, sorry, just turn the camera around.
It's totally acceptable. My intention for coming to the space, I guess, was asking, like, I guess the shadow, like what's the flip side of this? Like if we're recognizing that, you know, human nature isn't really integrating these old indigenous ways of doing things, like how do we walk upright in this world of like technocracy and this like agenda 21 or whatever you want to call this, of this like motivational force? Like what is what is the position? And I recognize that it's like done on an individual basis, right? Like each of us being our part and being our authentic self instead of walking out of integrity kind of thing. Like just from your personal heart, like what is the medicine, or like what is the way to walk through this, as you're talking about, you know, to bring it back?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's just teaching and normalizing the shadow work. Like I know people don't like, that's the thing we don't really share, right? On social media and just in general in public. When we talk about spirituality, it is a lot of like the love and light, and you know, that's a part of it. But I just, when you sit enough with people who are really working on themselves, it is a lot of challenges and growth, and that doesn't always feel comfortable, right? Because anytime we're expanding, we're growing, it can be discomfort in it, you know, the growing pains.
Yeah.
And just having more conversations like that, you know, and just showing people that it's okay. Like sometimes I'll address things on.
Y'all, Rambo is a very good speaker. He's extremely articulate. Too bad he wasn't that, outspoken, and I guess that came with time for him because he really seemed very timid when he was in Carbonation. He's changed. He's definitely done like a 360.
Like sometimes I'll address things on my page where people think that I'm like mad or upset, or like they'll be like, "Don't give it no energy, don't give them your energy." But like I don't address that. Like I'm not really mad at somebody because I don't know them. You know, like there's just somebody online who had an opinion that was different. So when I make a point to like bring that to my platform, is because I want to address that spirit, the spirit that comes through people, that can come through me, that can come through you. That look, let's look at this. Like this, look at what this just spirit just came through this person, and let's observe it and analyze it so that we can recognize it when it comes, because that's more important to me. Like I'm not affected by that particular person because I don't know them. You know, I don't have a relationship to them to be able to be like, oh, you hurt my feelings, because it's just the internet. Like people can come in and say whatever they want, and they might be private. I might not even be able to really get any further depth into their own life to connect with them to that level. But what I can do is use it as an example to teach. So even when we're having these discussions about things we're going through in the shadow work, it's all a lesson. It's not like I'm trying to say that anybody's evil or anybody's bad. It's just we all got shit. Like we all got our own shit. We all got our own shadows, our own demons, and they're gonna come up inevitably. Like I don't like this idea of just thinking that things are supposed to be always smooth, because that's just not life. It's not reality. It's not the totality of things. So we have to start being comfortable with having these conversations, and whenever we look to engage in movements or groups or create something like that, we should preemptively expect that there's going to be shit. We shouldn't try to find a place where things are like, like this paradise type environment, which is subjective, right? What is paradise to you? But
Right.
we just shouldn't romanticize it, is what I'm saying. Because when the shit really goes down and people need your support, they need you to be strong because they're going through something, like you're gonna falter, or you're gonna bounce and go to your plan B as soon as something goes a different way than you'd expect it, So if you have that awareness that that's the shadows, that's what we're here to grow with, and that's for me the best catalyst to growth. Like no, people aren't growing as much if they're not going through that to those shadows. Like when you bring your shadows to the light, that's where you really grow and find yourself.
I really feel that something that really struck a nerve in me, you could say, is because you don't hear a lot of people talking about that, which is like the spirit behind that, right? Like when the people, like when they have the spirit of separation or ignorance or intolerance or double blinders and stuff like
Right.
that. You know, a lot of people don't recognize that even like that spirit is working through them. And then also something else that you're touching on that I feel like is really important is that like through us like letting ourselves be seen in our shit, right? Like going into like whatever it is, whether it's like jealousy, insecurity, self-destruction, lack of self-acceptance, like by those things being out in the open, like it kind of allows a safe place for that, which allows other people to step into that place and say like me too, or to also be seen in that wound, so that wound can be nurtured. Because like you're saying, like if it's not open and exposed, it can't get tended to if we're in isolation, right? That spirit of isolation, we're hiding in that darkness and in avoidance. Yeah.
And a lot of people don't understand, and this is why I'm like such an advocate for community, because it's easy to be enlightened when you're in isolation. Like that's when people feel the most enlightened, right? Like you start your journey, you start learning about health and these modalities, and then you isolate yourself and you think you're this enlightened person, but then you come around people or you get into a relationship and then you start to see that you're not as enlightened as you thought you were. And that's because people are mirrors for us. And for we can't truly develop ourselves unless we're in the presence of other people, unless we're in the presence of relationship. It's my perspective. I know there's people who like go into isolation and meditation and they're looking, they're using that route. But to me, what has really helped me is just my relationship has really helped me. All my relationships in my life, the people in my life have just been massively influential in helping me see myself.
Now, I would agree with that point because the people in your life, they do show you yourself. Good, bad, ugly, but they show you who you really are.
In helping me see myself. So for me, knowing that, I think that the reason that we're gravitating towards communities because instinctively we want to grow. But I'm just letting you know, when you get there, don't turn away because it's going to get uncomfortable. That's part of the process. You know, the part of the process is going to feel like you want to run away, but don't isolate yourself after you're already awakened, because this is the next step in your development, is to be around people who are going to hold you accountable.
So I got one last shadow, and then I think I'm ready for silencio kind of thing. So what about like the shadow of some of these communities that like, in order to be part of our community, you have to pay us to come sit with us and for us to talk about these things. Like a lot of different community spaces are kind of like that. Like, oh, you want to be part of this kind of community, then you have to subscribe to this and this, this, and this, and it comes with this. When it feels like that's like, for me, like my ego, I guess, is like that this is make believe. This land is my land because I have this money thing, and that like it says this type of story.
Yeah.
Like it's like in my genes, or what it is like this subconscious belief system that like we used to operate in another form of community. And I think that's maybe why intuitively I was drawn to your live stream. Like I've never like really seen you live before, but like the title kind of struck me, and what you're talking about is something that like really sets my soul on fire. And part of my ego too is like, how do we get back to this way where it's not all about money? Because a lot of times people don't want to do this work unless they're being paid for this. But again, we're running into that like contraction or like that resistance, because that's where the medicine is, or the healing.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can be so uncomfortable, and that is the price that you're paying, is to go through those horrible postures and positions, and having to look at yourself in that way. And those are just the couple shadows that I feel like the whole, you can't stay with us unless you pay the 500 or whatever is the boundary, but also feeling on the other way too, of like knowing the value, what we bring to the table, and what is the boundary of creating these containers, or like I don't even know how to operate in this space-time reality sometimes, of like how am I supposed to move, and especially when there's all these different pressures, and just like, and then like figuring out who you are amongst all the other pressures, right? Like you as an individual, like people oppress you and say, oh, you need to think like this, this, and this. But then sometimes by being pressed, you're like, oh, nah, my inner voice is like this, and it says this instead. And staying in that integrity, even with that like persistence of like, no, you got to subscribe to these ideas, and you got to be like this to be enlightened, or you got to do this one way, believe in this way. And that's hard, man.
That's the challenge, is that, and I think that goes back to the whole individualistic mindset, is that at some point, at some level, we're going to have to agree on something in order for there to be harmony. Like, if you want to have your own beliefs, that's cool, but this is the power. And I hope people receive this. This is the power behind a group, is that they are unified in the same thinking, that they are unified in the same beliefs. If you don't have that unification, there's no power in that group. They're just a bunch of people hanging out together. And I know it sounds like we want to hold our autonomy, like, oh no, I can believe this and you could believe that and they could believe that, but it just don't work. Like I just don't see it working, because that's the whole point of being in communities, that you can release this burden to want to have your own thing. Like you don't have to be burdened by you trying to figure it out and have your own thing. You can join and be part of something that's bigger than you. And so if you can look at it that way, you can be part of the power that comes with the group. And so, but I just think it gets very complex, because people have their own shit and they're coming with their own shit. So even you're talking about money, so what? I don't care about money. It's just money. Like why are you holding on to it? Oh, you don't want to pay money. So what do you want to do with the money? Oh, you want to hold it for yourself. Oh, but you want to eat food and you want to live here, but you don't want to contribute. Okay, so that's out of balance too, right? So it's like,
Yes, that's very out of balance, and that's definitely bum behavior.
right? So it's like, I've been in a group where somebody had given $300,000, somebody had given $25,000, somebody had given $0, and it wasn't about the money, you know. The money meant nothing. I don't care if you bring in $500,000, don't make you the leader. It don't make you the owner. You're just somebody who brought in and paid your debt and paid your contribution.
I guess I'm
That was just your
thinking from like the
contribution.
group coaching, like ceremony type stuff, like where people are saying like, oh, if you want to be part of my community, that you have to pay this certain price and things like this, and being unwilling to teach or pass those things on unless. But like what you're channeling is something like completely different. Like if we have like all this land and you come be part of our society and we all grow food and share the resources, whether it's like the Wi-Fi or whatever the things that people are sharing, right? Like
Yeah.
raising the children and stuff like that. And that's like a whole nother level of thinking, right? Like how far removed are we in certain cities and things like that, that they're not even thinking on those levels or even capable of comprehending how those ways used to be.
Yeah, I guess when I think about it, like I'm all in. Like, so it's like if I have money, like it's the group's money. If I make money, it's the group's money. If I have a car, it's the group's car. And so it's like I'm all in. So this is where I'm creating and I'm putting my money, my resources, my family where my mouth is, because that's the way I'm moving. So if other people come and they're not have like at least a similar kind of expectation, it's going to feel out of balance, right? It's going to feel like they're just going to come and want to take whatever's here and they're not giving nothing back. So like I think that I should be mindful of that too. You know, it's just and nobody's forcing you, right? So if a group, it has their certain standards to join and you don't feel aligned to it, you don't have to go. As simple as that, you know.
Well, that makes me want to ask you that other question of like, because you're saying like sometimes we have to conform part of the group, right? But then like if we look at things that are like really like almost unsafe to talk about things, right? Like where certain groups are pushing you into biodigital convergence, right? Like getting injections or like changing your sex type or things like this. Certain people are pushing that stuff, right? So at what point do I like be like, no, you know, like and because there are some things where you have to stay like in your own integrity and be in your own way. Be like, no, I'm not getting my blood injected with this, or I'm not doing this, right? But like also I want harmony, but also sometimes what I'm doing is like very much so against the way of the society ways. Yes, so.
Yeah, that's different. I mean, like obviously what's
Oh,
happening
where's
is
the boundary?
no,
Like it's so hard. There's no
what,
teachings on these things on like you know, it's almost like the Wu Wei, like the traditional Chinese medicine of like walking in that Zen path of like finding the red road and walking in this way.
yeah. I mean, I'm talking about more specifically, like you identify a group that has already differentiated themselves from the popular culture, and you're looking to be part of that. Then you would want to do research and see if you're in alignment before you join that group. If we're talking about what the popular culture of the Western Hemisphere is doing, that's totally different. Obviously, there's so many things that are out of alignment to what maybe you and I believe with that popular culture. But I'm talking about like a group. Say you're online and we're all in the general niche of like, we want to get back to nature, live closer to the land.
Yes.
That right there, like if we're already there, okay, like now it's going to specifics. Like, well, are you, see, because some people might be a vegan tribe, you know, like they only want people who are
Yeah.
vegan. And I respect that. I honor that, you know, because I don't want people in my group who have that restriction, because that's gonna create friction, right? Like, oh, come eat. Oh, well, you gotta eat a different way, and they gotta eat a different way. It's like, no, like we all have to unify on something at some level. If not, what the hell is the point? Like we could just be at our own place, and that's what people are used to, right? Like we hang out, and then when we're hanging out, you go back to your apartment or to your house, and then you do your thing and they do their thing. I'm not talking about that. Like this is a whole different reality that people need to tap into and be aware of. Like this is what it's turning into, and you have to find if you're really in alignment and analyze the group properly, or else you're getting yourself into something that you might not be in alignment to.
I guess I have one more final childish question, and then I'll leave you alone. So like, childish question is like, who are you, and what are you doing? Like you were talking about how like each of us has like a value and is like a different integral part of society kind of thing. It's important that we are doing things that like are in our own personal integrity. So like, who are you on the planet? What are you called to do? Or like, what is the services you're offering? Or like, could you tell me a little bit about you? Or like, what is this like? What's your calling?
Yeah. So I said this in my last live. So I look at me like I bridge worlds. So
Mm.
my purpose here is to unify things together, and I guess that's why I'm so attracted to community, and that's why I don't reject any members of humanity. I'm not like pro this race or that
Right.
race. Like I'm all about bridging worlds and how can we unify the ancient and the present or the
Yes.
future, unify technology and nature, unify all these components that are seemingly polar opposites or seemingly so different. Be a bridge, you know, be a bridge for the world is one of my mantras. But aside from that, like more pragmatically, like I do offer like, well, my content is just educational, shifting people's perspective and helping them to organize their mind and how they look at the world. So when I talk about food, I'm talking about the 5 food kingdoms. That's one way of organization. When I talk about reality, I'm talking about the 3 worlds. That's another way I organize life for people. And so I articulate ideas, you know, and that's kind of in a way like the work of a shaman, you know, is to walk people through life in that way and to give it meaning and to clarify things, you know. And so I mean, I don't call myself a shaman at all, but I was just kind of relating it
Yeah.
to that capacity. Yeah, and then I also have like literally digital services that I offer for conscious businesses. We get
Oh,
into that.
cool.
So it's like those are the things that are very clear to me that I'm here to offer and I do offer.
And then
So
is that something I'll like easily be able to find? Like if I wanted to read more or to like hear more of your teaching on like the 5 food, like the things that you're just channeling?
yeah,
Like is that easy?
yeah. Everything's on my page. Are you not familiar with my page?
No,
How
sir.
did you get on the live?
I have no idea. I would joke, Dios te bendiga. It's like, alhamdulillah, thanks to God. And like,
Oh, okay.
yes, sir.
I
Yeah.
thought you were already like following for a while. So yeah, everything's on my page. You can find like all
Okay.
this information on
Yeah.
there. But yeah, it was good
You
talking
too,
to you.
sir. Peace.
All right, take care.
Shanti.
Okay, that was cool. Anybody else want to come in? All right, yeah. So the topic of community, I think I'm gonna wrap it up here. That was a good conversation. Yeah, so just some things to think about, you know, if you're curious about community, if you're curious about being part of something, I would say just number one, either you are taking some sort of leadership role or you are understanding that you are following the leadership of somebody else and being at peace with that and being in harmony with that and understanding your place in it. Number two, so I kind of reverse engineer these the flaws into things that you could actually look for. Number two is know your value and what you're bringing to the group and be able to freely and abundantly offer that to the group members, and also expect that or hold people to a standard to reciprocate that value, because you don't want to be out of balance by giving too much and not receiving anything either. So make sure you're in a group where that commerce, that economy of value exchange is happening. And then number three is do your due diligence to understand the unifying principles, the unifying values that the group is founded on. And if you agree, then go with that mindset and practice those principles and values as an integrated member of the group, right? Integrate that into yourself and move with that knowledge, you know. And if you don't agree with the values and principles, or you don't know where they are, what they are for that group, that's a red flag. Or maybe you shouldn't join that group, or maybe you should ask and be inquisitive. But that there should be that, you know, for sure, in any group that you're joining. So leadership, commerce, and unifying values or principles. Top 3 things. That's it for today. Thank you, everybody that was in the room. Appreciate you guys. I'm grateful. And I'll see you guys next.
All right, y'all. I hope you enjoyed this video as well as my commentary. Please be sure to drop me a comment, smash the heck out of that like button, and share. Guys, I want to give a warm welcome to all of my new subscribers. Hey, y'all. Welcome to the channel. To all of my OGs, my day ones, my ride or dies. Y'all already know what it is. Big up yourself. We in the building with it.